after each of you has a finish, so we have an hour, and then the next hour or probably a 30 minutes. So altogether we probably can have 1.5 hour. My suggestion on the beginning. So the 30 minutes we spent on the questions and answers. So as I said, we are going, to continue that meetings in the next weekends. And regarding, referring to you, would you be so kind, to meet again in that team as we are today, tomorrow 10:30 again? Is that possible? Johannes, I know you can't, but if you can engage Gabriela. If not, then Gabriela, you can engage, next weekend. But
I think that will be next weekend. Yes.
Okay, I understand, Dr. Jacek Sareusz-Wolski, you can be tomorrow, right? 10:30. That's great. Egidius, you as well, right?
Yes.
And Professor Gerhard.
My problem. I'm sorry to say my problem, but today I will have to leave a little, let's say, 11:45, because I have another important meeting.
Okay, so my suggestion, and Professor Gebhardt, you will be available tomorrow as well, okay?
Tomorrow when?
10:30 in the same time.
All right.
Thank you very much. So my suggestion is that we spend today just 1.5 hours, so we will finish just, a minute before 12. Because the Egidius is going to leave, and tomorrow we meet again 10:30. So the time arrived, so 10:32, and I have pleasure, to open this panel discussion and debate about the reshaping of the European Union into the community of European nations, according to the Schumann's concept as a challenge after pandemic. That is how this topic was, the title of that topic we assigned. And on the beginning, I would like, read a letter delivered to us from the Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, who is Prime Minister of Polish government, who took a honorary patronage of the 4th European Schumann Festival. And the festival is organized from over the weekends from 9th of May up to the 7th of May. And I would like, to, before I read the letter from the Prime Minister, I would like remind for all that we are transmitting, that panel to many websites, to the websites of the television websites, radio, and many different institutions. So let me read a letter which was, sent to the all panelists, all participants, and all people, attending, the European Schumann Festival. Dear Sir and Madam, the 4th European Schumann Festival that begins in a unique celebration of European integration, it is time to celebrate the 16th anniversary of Poland's presence in the European Union. It is also a time of talks on the future of the community of the rule of our homeland in shaping it. To all organizers and speakers participating in this special event, I would like to express my respect and assurance of my memory. Today we recall the wonderful figure of the father of United Europe, Robert Schuman. It was on this day, it was on the 9th of May, 70 years ago, that a declaration named after him was announced. She called for the construction of the community of European nations based on the Christian and democratic values. This great visionary and politician knew that European politics should not conflict with the patriotic ideas, that you can build a European community and respect the subjectivity of all its members. This year's anniversary is therefore a unique opportunity geographical concept and great place to live. It is also a great civilization and spiritual heritage. It is our duty to the next generation of Europeans to cultivate this wonderful cultivate these wonderful values. We are responsible for Europe's present and future. I believe that we can build it on agreement and cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, I am convinced that this year's, held in the shadow of pandemic, edition of the Schuman Festival will be unique. I believe that it will strengthen European solidarity for the community and refer to the ideas on which it has grown. I wish you successful conversation and cordial greetings. Prime Minister of Polish Government, Mateusz Morawiecki. So, we can now start our panel. And as you know, on my background, we presented the Robert Schuman, and we called him, the Schuman as a president of the Community of European Nations. So this is just a symbol we would like, to indicate, talking about that important, issue. As you all very well know, in January there was triggered some kind of a process by some, groups around the European Parliament about the so-called the future of European Union. And we think that, the crisis, the people, the groups like who are really like that the Europe will be based on the Christian values, as well the Prime Minister expressed, and everybody who basically like to come back to the kind of a shape and model of Robert Schuman in the Europe. So we would like to undertake the debate, discussion, and we would like, basically to integrate some certain community, some certain groups around, European nations, so that to be in that debate and not only be in that debate, but as well to influence, to influence the future shape of the Europe. And what we are, as Institute of Schuman thought, very much indeed promoting the the community of European nations. So now let me start, to ask our great panelists, to basically refer to that, to that area of considerations, to that, topic. And I would start just reminding you, let's first, 15 minutes each of you, and then we will spend some 20 minutes, 25 minutes on a question, so additional considerations. So finally we would like to finish around 2-3 minutes before at 12. Professor Stanisław Gebhardt, be so kind, to start, our meeting, because, you are a person who, as I am saying, you were meeting Robert Schuman, you were drinking a tea with him, you met him, you've been in his house, There is great that you are with us, and we really like, you bring us closer to that, climate you obtained from the meetings with Robert Schuman. So go ahead, the floor is yours, Professor Gebhardt.
Thank you very much. It's really pleasure for me, particular, to recall the early years of my political activity, and among others, the meeting of Robert Schuman was quite quite experience for me. In 1956, when already there was first movement in Central Europe, in Poland practically, that we in exile considered that it's the beginning of the change which we have been expecting, for which we have been working in exile. And at that time, I was already representing the Polish youth organization. I was already active in the international field, and I have been invited to Robert Schuman, to his home in Paris, at the Rue de Lille, if I remember rightly, number 6, I think. A friend of mine, we have been invited for tea, and for quite a long conversation, I have obviously asked him if he can do something that to accelerate liberation of Poland, as we considered that Poland at that time was under the communist oppression, occupation, and Soviet occupation. And Robert told me that nothing can be done, that Europe is not prepared for any activities which could spell danger of new conflict. And that, in fact, is something which, in his opinion, prevents European communities, European nations to get engaged in any activities against the Soviet Union. I was obviously disappointed, and I left this meeting most unhappy, if I can say so. But then, considering, obviously, everybody in the West at that time was under wrong impression of the power of the Soviet power. And as we know now, the Soviet Union at that time militarily was not sufficiently strong to oppose the United States, which was in fact the most important element in the Atlantic community, and that time was quite strongly and resisting all the Soviet influence. However, then after that I had the pleasure of inviting Schuman to various meetings of youth, European youth, and he participated. He came to some sort of quite, in fact, very, very informal, which made quite an impression on us, as we expected him to be in sort of a bit aloof and not near ideas, dynamic ideas, which was of course wrong. And remember, he was once on Mediterranean, on a small island. We organized a seminar, which for 2 weeks, in fact, no, one sort of seminar holiday. And Robert Schuman came for one of the meetings there, and that was most impressive. And there, in fact, I have established, and later he also was participating in these sessions of youth session, not in Porkro on this island, but in many other places. And I also met him last, I think, one of the last meetings in European Christian Democratic Union, where I have been then already invited as the Secretary General of the European Youth Organization. And what in fact has been and in fact is important from Robert Schuman ideas. He considered it on universal values. He's built Christian social values. These universal values are unchangeable, but on that it developed the whole Christian set of Christian considerations. Why? What is the difference? The difference is a human being. Robert Schuman considered, as I personally and our movement, youth movement, European youth movement, has been very much working on it, considered that human person is most important, but not as egoistic individual, but as a member of community. And this small community, which is family, is growing into local community, nation, international. And the human values translated into public life means that solutions, for instance, economic solutions, have to consider also social problems, or obviously or human cultural considerations, that the economic and political solutions are not devoid of social and cultural and traditional considerations, but above all, the human person is a central problem of the whole life, and that is obviously based result of belief in the Christian social values, which are a kind of set of values which we can always refer to as a set of directions in our life. That was very impressive, and in fact that translated into ordinary solutions in political life, in economic life, is most important. And I think I must say, to my satisfaction, that present government in my country is present Prime Minister especially in proposing solutions, is considering not only economic solutions, but each economic solution has implications which are considered and looked for solutions for every human domain of activities, and that is this global consideration for the running the country and running the life of the country is really, I think, to my knowledge, for the first time being considered in by the Polish government actively really solving the problems with all the difficulties, especially at what has been seen by Schuman in subsequent conversations with him in 50s various meetings because of the 50 years living under the totalitarian oppression and which obviously had a very important impact on the Polish community as well as, I suppose, the community of the other nations of Central Europe. Now, to finish this first part, so to say, of my intervention, I'd like to again underline that impact of Schuman in Europe at that time. I open the bracket. You must consider that the situation was different than it is today, and many things which don't exist today then were very, very important. First, the Cold War started in 1948, and the United States have been the government of the United States involved, and the United States involved, militarily involved in defense of Europe, was looking for support from Europe. And then the German heavy industry, which according to international agreement of the Allies, the heavy industry was supposed to be dismantled. And the Americans considered that it should be stopped, that the industry in Germany could be helpful in case of any conflict. And therefore, the government, the US government, was against dismantling of the industry. That obviously was not seen well by French government, but by French community, because the war and German occupation of Europe and that war activity was still very vivid. So therefore, any cooperation with Germany was considered with a lot of reserve. So therefore, it was one of the elements of Schuman plan, so to say. The second, the German industry was useful, but obviously it must have been controlled, or should have been controlled, because of the recollections of the First World War and Second World War, that this industry was very important for Germany to start to build the power of German aggression. And so therefore a lot of reserve. So one of the important things was the steel coal industry. So therefore the idea of Schuman, okay, we stop the dismantling of the heavy, but under control, not under control as it was after the First World War, it was not effective. But control, the Germans will participated in this control. So therefore, they have not been under the under the direct control. You have to do it, but they do it because they agree with the others. Well, it was a little nuance, so to say, and very important. And on the other hand, in France, the idea that Germans will be in the Union, controlled by different.
Nothing. You can proceed, I think.
Yeah, go. Hello, Professor Gebhardt. We just come back in the other extended questions, right? So now we will switch to Dr.
Just to finish one sentence.
Okay.
And therefore, the creation of the steel and coal community, 1949-50, was the beginning of cooperation of European nations, more than nations, European national communities. And that gave the start to Euratom, European Economic Community, then various changes up to present situation where, as I understand, we are looking how to reform the present organization of Europe. Thank you. I don't hear you.
No, neither do I.
Now better.
Okay, excuse me. Just thank you very much, Professor Gebhardt. And now we will switch to Dr. Jacek Sareusz-Wolski. Would you be so kind? Take the floor, please.
Okay, I'll go down to more concrete things, and it will be about the geographical balance in the European Union institutions. I would start saying that it's hard to imagine the democratic community of nations without proper representation. If there's no representation, there's no democracy, because there's a risk of bias. It is called in the jargon of Brussels geographic balance. It is included in most EU formal documents. So nobody questions the principle of geographical balance, which means that all the member states or national communities should be represented among the officials of the institutions. One could present the case referring to various institutions like European Commission, Council, Parliament, plenty of agencies, diplomatic service of EU, and so forth. But to simplify the picture, I would concentrate only on the European Commission, which is a big bureaucratic machinery of, alone in Brussels, some 21,000 officials, if not more already, and which is of key importance as an executive arm of the European Union. This representativity of nations forming the bloc, as I said, was named or called to be based on geographical balance, and it was always a matter of concern whenever EU has been enlarging, starting initially from the 6 member states of Schuman era, coming until today when we are 27. And there were various methods to secure this geographic representativity, or in other words, equitable geographical balance. The biggest enlargement we have ever witnessed was the enlargement of 2004 to the 10 countries of Central Eastern Europe. In terms of both quantity and quality, it was a qualitative jump, and a change in terms of completeness of the European project. It has started, unfortunately, with administrative reform by then British Commissioner Neil Kinnock, who has reformed and changed the system of recruitment of officials in such a way as to delay the entry and promotion of officials from Central Eastern Europe. It was intentional policy which has put all the newcomers 2 grades below the old ones. And the political intention of it was very clear from the beginning. It was to discriminate the new ones. But leaving that aside, which is already a history, although very unfortunate history, let's go to the details. Because, as I said, nobody would in open debate question the principle of geographical balance, but nobody or few or to a very modest extent practice that. And I'll present you the figures, but I have also personal experience. First, still as an accession country, trying to prepare suitable people for the EU jobs, and then as once Vice President of the Parliament, responsible for the new cadre of new member states, and then trying to, without great success, to introduce more equitable geographical balance into European External Action Service, European Diplomatic Service. So, as I said, I'll concentrate only, and you see the table in front of you, I'll concentrate on European Commission, leaving aside other institutions, although I can say at the beginning that that's very much the same. If we go to the other institutions, the general observations are very close to each other. And looking at the table, you will see and you will notice the disproportions that my compatriots, Poles and other Central East Europeans are not properly represented there in various capacities. There are lower ranks in the hierarchy. There are 11 grades in the European Commission from A5 to A16. And I speak now about officials, although besides that, there are also so-called temporary agents, contract agents, which means people for short notice. They're coming for 1 year up to 6 years, but not really taking important positions. So key are fonctionaries, officials. It has to be said that from the very beginning, the bureaucratic administrative structure of European Commission was based on the French administrative tradition and model. So the lowest ranks, administrators, advisors, and assistants, is from A5 to A9, and then you start with the junior managerial positions from A9 to A12, and then senior managerial positions from A12 to A16. A16 are directors generals. A15 are deputy directors generals. Below are directors. And one could say, oversimplifying obviously, that it is more important to have one director general than 100 assistants or simple administrators. European Commission is presenting and publishing regularly from time to time the data on this distribution and repartition of officials, giving figures per country, per grade, and also, which I'll show you later, how distributed they are through the directorates generals of the European Commission. The general remark is that those new members from Central Eastern Europe are significantly underrepresented. On the table, which you have seen on your screen, it's easy. In order to compare, you have to compare things which are comparable. So please look at the Polish file and the Spanish file. Those two, older member and the newer member of this very much similar size. And you will see that overall number of officials, agents, temporary agents and contract agents for Poland is 802. Much less, but there's the difference of the size. For Bulgaria, 397, for Czechia, 316, for Hungary, 426, and so forth and so forth. But Poland is 802 and Spain is 1,167. So already in those aggregate terms and figures, you see the disproportion. But if you go down to the more specific data, and you refer to the positions of junior and senior managerial rank, you see that this disproportion is mounting. You can see that in these junior positions, the new member states are underrepresented much more seriously than for the whole picture. And the number of polls in the middle managerial positions, which is AD 1213, is 43. Only 43 polls as compared to 500 Spanish. So 43 to 500 for two countries of comparable size. At the same time, there's 500 Germans, 500 French, and only 43 Poles. Among the big five states of the members of the European Union. So you see how big, I would say, 1 to 10 disproportion is there for the biggest out of new member states. The overall picture is easy to understand if you look at the structure of employment in the Commission as a pyramidal structure. In the upper grades, old member states, especially big ones, are overrepresented, and new member states, Central East Europeans, are underrepresented. And below you will find a lot of Romanians, for example, and others from Central Eastern Europe as drivers, chauffeurs, secretaries, assistants, administrators. So those two pyramidal structures are totally opposite one to other. When you look on the next table, which is on the table number 3, Mr. Agata, you have the distribution among the Directorates General. All of them, and then you have the figures. No, next one. Yes, the figures, and you see the clear consequence of this disproportion. There are so many Directors General. All of them are somehow important. Some are more important than others, but being given that the representation of the Central Eastern Europeans is disproportionately lower than wishing to be represented in the key areas for their own special interests, they have to concentrate in selected areas, selected Directorates General, which means they are absent from the others. So there are areas where there are very few of them, and obviously there are areas of concentration and preference as a necessity. So old big member states are represented everywhere. You have to choose between what's more important and what is less important. And as an example, I can say that Poland, as a new member state, is preferring or giving high priority to agriculture, budget, energy, justice, neighborhood, and regional policy, which is self-explaining probably. So those two pyramids, which are reversed, which are on the opposite directions, indicating, but the same disproportion also is in the middle managerial positions, where for Poles you have AD9 is the first managerial position for head of unit. There are 400 Poles and nearly double Spaniards, 750. So roughly in the higher managerial positions, it's 1 to 10. In middle and lower managerial positions, it's 1 to 2. Then there's a very useful reference. Could I ask Agata for the next table? There is such a round picture. I can see it. Anyway, the reference point is the population. In principle, and nobody denies that the proportion of employment for officials from member states should be proportionate to the population. And you have the figures which show how disproportionate it is. It is this table. I don't know. Pani Agato, czy może pani to pokazać? Okay, no, I can't see it. Anyway, I'll quote some of them, comparing the figure. Yes, that's it. The reference point, the percentage shown there, is the share of a given country in the overall population of the EU. And then the factual percentage in this core of functionaries. And, for example, among new member states, Hungarians, they account for 3% of the population, and there are only 2.3% of officials. For Czech Republic, they account for 3.1%. And there are only 1.6% of officials, which means half. For Romania, the second biggest country among the new ones, from Central Eastern Europe, it's 4.5%, 4.5% of population and 4.2% of officials. And for Poland, which is the most strikingly underrepresented, is 8.2% of population and only 4.5% of officials. So half of it, roughly. And still keep remembering all the time that you count numbers. So you add drivers and secretaries and assistants together with directors general. So it is not a very good reference, but useful one. And then on the other hand, you have the countries which are heavily overrepresented, and the champion is Belgium. It has 3.1% of population, and it has 14.8% of officials. So it is 5 times more represented than it should be. Then you have Spain, which is roughly 8.9, and officials is 7.8, so nearly well, but not 100% well represented. There is Italy, which is slightly overrepresented because it represents 11.2% of population and has 12.5% of officials. And there is Germany, which is precisely represented as it should be, which is 13.8% as population and 13.8% in terms of officials. But then if you put on those figures this distribution among the grades, then the picture changes. You see then that all member states are heavily overrepresented on the higher grades, and they are not represented necessarily so much on the lower grades. I would like still to return, Pani Agato, to pierwszego, to the first, my first diagram, because what is important there is this distribution among the grades. And, for example, the Directors General level, which is AD 16, there are four, I compare again Poland and Spain, there are 4 Spaniards and 0 Poles. Deputy Director General, there are 13 Spaniards and only 8 Poles. Directors, AD 14, there are 82 Spaniards and 13 Poles. So you see on the upper echelons of the structure, this disproportional representation goes even further. The same goes for example, for the directors levels 12 and 13, where you have 221 officials of AD 12 for Spain and only 22 for Poland, which means 1 to 10. And for AD 13, also directors, 169 Spaniards and only 21 Poles. So this disproportion is very, very striking when you go down to those details about grades, which means managerial positions. As I said before, it's more important for a member state to have 1 director general than 100 or whatever number of assistants and secretaries and drivers. And then now a little bit about how the things go in terms of change over time. This unfortunate structure was over years presented by the European Commission, and in terms of Central East Europeans, the most underrepresented deficit countries were Poland and Romania. Commission clearly used to state and to admit that there is this disproportion, did not deny that it should be corrected, but did nothing to correct. So the deficit in 2017, when we compare the figures, as compared to the figures which I present to you, which are 2020, January this year, the figures are the same. I mean, the disproportion is not, it continues, it does not change in favor, which means that there's a stagnation, and that the human resources services of the Commission run a policy which is not favoring the return to the equitable geographical balance. No improvement to sum up since 2017-2020, which brings me to the conclusion that as compared to between the Central Eastern European countries, the bigger you are, the less you are represented, and that's true for Poland and Romania. Poles, for example, are regularly two-thirds representation as compared to the average of Central East Europeans, which means that small countries like Baltic republics, with all due respect to them, or small Balkan countries, they are better treated. Is it an intentional policy? Because of the persistence of that situation, and as I told you, I've been working on the legal documents and fighting for the proper representation in the newly created diplomatic service of the unions some years ago, without great success. It looks like that it is an intentional policy to block the promotion of officials from new member states, to the higher ranks, and to keep them underrepresented. Why? It is not only the aspect, or I would say it's quite secondary, the professional career chances for the nationals. It is about influence. We know that the European Commission has the monopoly of legislative proposals. It's kind of a government, executive body. So who sits there decides. So if there are some disproportionate policies of the Union, some bias in certain policies or decisions, it can be easily associated with this disproportionate representation among the officials there. And very often when questions are being asked, why, for example, the trade policy or state aid policy, competition policy, or whatever other scientific and research policy is favoring some nations and is not the others, then if you dig deeper, you see that this is the result of this disproportion which is over there. So the key figures to retain is that there is a disproportion, that it is highly visible in the higher ranks where it is so important, that the most deficit country like Poland is more than half for aggregate and then 1 to 10 for higher grades, and there is no improvement. And it is about policy. It is about intentions. It is about the conviction that which is not being taken care of, which stems out of this community of nations concept of Robert Schuman, that countries should be equally and properly represented to give the democratic mandate for the community. So it's a serious bias and serious deficit and weakness of the European Union of today. Last question and kind of an answer, what to do? The answer was found by the European Commission at the very beginning. When there was such a special mechanism created, it was kind of special European fast track for officials of new members, but it ended in 2010. It brought some of them, but to the lower ranks, and then it was abandoned in 2010 in spite of the fact of the Commission, and never installed for other institutions. For example, I fought in vain for the same mechanism to be implemented from the very beginning of the diplomatic service, and we lost the battle. I mean, the good intentions were declared, but there were no instruments installed to enforce. It has to have enforcement mechanisms like targets to be achieved and special procedures to be applied. So there's a big gap between promise and performance. The promise is we are community of nations. We should be equally represented. There should be geographical balance to be faithful to the motto of the treaty, which says united in diversity. We are not united in diversity. The diversity is not taken properly care of, and there's a visible, striking discrimination of new member states, which can be, but this is quite another area of research and reflection. It is reflected in the policies. The Union and its executive arm, which is the European Commission, is a very much union of Western Europe. It is not a union of all of Europe, as would be or should be according to the Schuman's idea of community of nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacek Saryusz-Wolski, a member of the European Parliament, and I am really happy, because you all, Professor Gebhardt and you, show that you have much to say, and you say, you indicate very practical issues, important issues, and I'm happy because tomorrow, when we start at 10:30, we would like to go back, to extend, to basically to hesitate the actions, what actions we should take in more concrete way, because it seems to be no democracy exists, so this idea of Robert Schuman is fully, destroyed. So thank you for your very concrete indication. And, we of course, so we today are going to finish at 12 because, Dr. Egidius is going to leave. So now I like, Dr. Egidius to get the floor. So floor is yours, Dr. Egidius. So 15 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I will try to fit in the time, and maybe some of my talks will be not in harmony. Let's say what Mr. Jacek Saryusz-Wolski said, and maybe I will start a little bit to help you to understand why I am thinking and talking what I did. I am, my first background was natural scientist. I'm biochemist, but when we restored our independent state, I became politician, and I'm also the political writer, and I can show you two of my books that will help you to understand who am I. So one is book in English, maybe you will see the name is Global Football. Global Football. Maybe tomorrow I will expand my ideas why globalization is global football, and the interesting word that globalization is emotional, not economical, not military, but emotional. And the second book, unfortunately, is in the Lithuanian language. It's called A Dream Society. It's a book about the future of our civilization, Dream Society, and the small word that is a blueprint. It's an unfinished book. I wrote the unfinished book because of that it looks like like blonknote. You can put your own ideas in that book. So this is about me, and I will start my ideas about European Union. Remembering one meeting many years ago with my friend in Lithuania, who is the writer, not the political writer, the humorist writer, and he said to me, Egidius, the model of life is very simple. You simply have to live long and happy life. It's very simple, no problem. So, be happy and live a long life. And I try to understand why we have, or maybe not have, life in European Union long and happy. So generally for Lithuania, for our country, the membership in the European Union is a very good idea. We always had a dream to be the Western Europeans. And the notion of being Western Europeans, when we joined NATO and European Union, we are now really Western Europeans. So we are very happy emotionally, but what was my problem? I already said many times then, but I'm sorry to repeat one more. When I came for the first time to Brussels, it was 1990. I said to officials of European Parliament, I brought my loving Lithuanian heart to European Union. In that European community, I brought the loving Lithuanian heart. The answer from officials was, my friend, next time when you will come, bring the cardiogram, we will check your heart. So the European Union, in a sense, is not a spiritual organization. It's a kind of technical, mechanical organization. And in the political terms, European Union, for me, European Union is the organization that plays chess in black figures. Black figures means that European Union never made the first move. European Union only reacting to what is around. Let's wait until Russia do something. Let's wait until China do something. Let's wait until pandemic will come. So we have no idea to be first. But why we have no idea to be first. Because if you want to be first, to play in white figures, you have to have a dream or some idea about the future. But unfortunately, European Union has no idea about the future. And you know, many years ago, I was participant of a so-called European Convention on Future of Europe. And finally, the convention finished only in a very simple thing. They invented the post of president and the foreign minister of European Union. Now we are talking about conference on the future of Europe, but I am afraid that the final decision of the conference on the future of Europe will be the distribution of members of commission or officials, what Mr. Saryusz-Wolski said, redistribution of quotas and nothing more. So where is that future? Well, there is no discussion about the future, and why it is not, because we really have European Union is something, but it's really not super state. I disagree completely what European Union is going to super state. European Union is going to non-state. European Union wants to replace the emotional understanding of state to some mechanical composition. We have the machinery of commission, we have the machinery of decision making, we have the quotas for many things, and we really want to make that machinery working very well. And generally speaking, it works very well. It works, but it works like a mechanical instrument, but not a state. State has to have, you know, super state has really to have the dictator and some messianistic idea. Does European Union have messianistic idea? I would say no. They're saying we have to reflect people's needs, and they're really reflecting people's needs, but they are not reflecting people's wishes and people's dreams. And there are a few major problems why European Union is dysfunctioning. I would say problem one is what everything is divided in the quotas. Organization is working on the quota principle. If you have the male president, you have to have the female vice president. If you have the minister, so there's the gender equality, there's the country distribution, there is the different age distribution. I don't know what. I'm working. Maybe Mr. Krishak remembers. I am the vice president of the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe. Vice president. Can I be the president? Maybe I'm a very smart guy and I would like to be the president. But people say no. Despite your capabilities, the quota today is for liberals. So if you are a Christian Democrat, you cannot be. Maybe you will have the opportunity after 5 years when there will be quota for Christians. Poland has no chance because the Polish parliamentarians are or in European People's Party group or in a conservative group, so your quota is not here. You can be genius in the European Union. You have Tusk, and now you will have no quota. So don't worry, sit quiet. This is like European Union is working. Of course, if the organization is successful, quotas maybe it's not bad when everybody is clever. But when you need really clever, visionistic people, the quotas is a very big obstacle. And this is one of problems of that relativism. So we are not fighting really in the European Union for good ideas or better ideas. We are distributing ideas. After European election, we are calculating how many people are in EPP group and conservative group, and we are dividing everything. We are not saying that we are more clever than our organization. Our ideas are good ideas, and maybe liberal ideas are bad ideas. No. We are simply saying all the ideas are equally good. Unfortunately, and we are working for that so-called stability, and means that stability is really for machinery, but not for ideas. When I asking, the second thing is that European Union now does not need intellectuals. They need specialists. They need specialists for something. But being the specialist is not necessarily intellectual. Specialist is working in the machinery but not creating ideas. And if you want to be the good European or so-called good European now, you have to be good specialist in something. But you can be completely stupid in general European ideas. And Europe is accepting you by quotas as a specialist. I'm doctor of natural sciences, so I can pretend to be some there in scientific area, though I'm not working in the science already for 30 years, but it will be difficult to pretend me to some social ideas because I have no social background, so I'm not specialist. So this is second thing. Third very bad thing in the European Union is that everything is working on a so-called project basis. If you want to receive something, you have to write the project. But if you are writing the project, you have to know what you do, what results will be, and what is the money for. And if I'm coming to European Union and saying, I am a genius, I'm invent something what will change the world, I will never receive money because it is stupid. You have to have very concrete things. I remember many hundred years ago, Leonardo da Vinci was sponsored by sponsors who never asked him what he will invent, and he did very interesting things. In European Union, you cannot sponsor genius, you can sponsor only the specialist who knows already the result, and if you already know the result, you will never invent something very new. So that makes the European Union working, as I said, as a machinery, but not a visionistic organization. And the fourth thing may be very philosophical, but I'm working mostly for foreign affairs, international relations. And in foreign affairs, very often we hear that Europe has to speak in one voice, to have something. One voice is, for me, I'm a little bit piano player, so in one voice it means unison, when everybody is singing the same melody, the same thing. But I think European Union has not to work as a unison. European Union has to work as a harmony, as orchestra. In orchestra, musicians are very different, but they are creating harmony. And when I'm saying harmony, in Brussels I have no harmony, unison. You have behave in the same way as the Spanish, Portuguese, so their spirit is very different. So this is lacking of, the spiritual basis and making European Union very, very effective mechanical device, but we are not happy of that because really we don't know what is a happy Europe. And my first suggestion is say in few sentences what Europe really you need. Are you happy of that? And European Union, what is it now? I'm sorry to say to Mr. Saryusz-Wolski, European Union is not designed for promotion of national ideas. European Union is for making European ideas. I'm working many years for Council of Europe. It's a different organization, but we have many of European features. And I said in the very beginning, in 70s and 80s, Council of Europe was organization of so-called gentleman club, when people are gathering together how to make European ideas better. Nobody brought, German, French or Turkish ideas. Now Council of Europe is an organization when nationals are coming to Strasbourg to promote their national business. And we have a Turkish problem, Russian problem, Armenian problem, Azeri problem in Council of Europe, which is not designed for this problem. I am the chairman of subcommittee which is working on the conflicts between member states of Council of Europe, which is stupid. And conflict between gentlemen. But when the gentlemen are promoting their own ideas, so I am not very optimistic, but we can on the ideas that if we will have more Lithuanians in Brussels, or more Poles, or more Czechs, Czech Republic or Lithuania will be more happy country. Probably no, but we have to really to go back to that spirit. What is the really European integration for? And if we will understand that, we will see what we don't need quotas, We need really visionaries. We need new reflection. We have to play in white figures. We need to say what we want, not only to react to the different things that are surrounding us. So I will finish here. I have on my notes many more things. Maybe tomorrow, when we'll have discussion session, I will continue. So thank you very much. I'm sorry for this 16 minutes, but I took.
Yeah, out of your speech as well as arriving, that we are going to have as well tomorrow more time, and we have much demand to extend that tomorrow. So now be so kind, Johannes de Jong, the director of Salux, the organization, Salux organization in Netherlands. Johannes, the floor is yours, please. 15 minutes.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's my honor to be here, to be part of this among so many very experienced voices. I myself, I'm slightly younger. I'm from 75. I'm the director of Salux. It's the foundation, the European Political Foundation of the European Christian Political Movement. And I've listened carefully to what I heard, and some of these points I will come back to. But let me first begin with the first thing. I think that the situation of the European Union, indeed as European idea, as just has been said, is not in a very good shape. You see divergence on all ends, and this is worrisome, not because we need some, United States of Europe or European superstate. I fully agree we should not have that, but because of the fact that everything is like, spinning in different directions, you get this fractured idea of what the European Union is and what it should go to, but even deeper, why we should have it. If you see the situation and shift in Italy at the moment, for example, is that you see a huge drop in support for the EU, and that is worrying. Especially if you put that in a context of the geopolitical challenges of our continent that are imminent. I myself have been involved in situation in Iraq and Syria. We can see the situation around Europe as a very unstable situation. So we have a common challenge. Of course, we have now the challenge of the pandemic. And at the same time, we see fractures, deep fractures within the EU, within countries about the EU, and between countries as well, and between blocks of countries. And part of these fractions are actually a consequence of trying to make this European superstate too quickly, too fast, and without clear European spirit underpinning it. Indeed, the problem of the mechanical European Union without a European spirit among the peoples of Europe, which then, translates in debates between Italians and Dutch. For example, about how much money the Dutch should allow the Italians to have. And then indeed we have arrived at the consequences of this mechanical approach, and without an underpinning European spirit. And we can see there that there is a lot of bias, vice versa. The Dutch still thinking that the Italians will, squander all the money, and the Italians thinking that the Dutch are just very, very, they're very selfish. So these ideas about each other show that we have a problem. we need, on the one hand, given the challenges, we need the EU. But we need an EU that is based indeed on community. So when I'm listening to what Professor Gebhardt said is very important, I think, in the sense that European Union began really with a sense of a community, vice versa, between peoples who really had a very bad recent history with each other. In this case, the French and the German, but add the Dutch to that as well, please. So we can see that it started with the concept of community of peoples, not just an exchange of national interest only. Of course, this played a role, I think, right from the start, but there was a bit more to that. And that more to that is kind of lost due to this mechanical approach. And now in this pandemic, we see two things that are very interesting. On the one hand, we see the need for community. And this is emphasized all over again. We need to be supportive with each other. We're all human beings, all in this together. And at the same time, due to the pandemic, we see the limit of this mechanical approach in the European project. And the idea has always been, oh, if we just push forward on the mechanical level, if we just push forward this mechanical integration, we will have a kind of spiritual, so to say, trickle-down effect. Now, we know this hasn't happened, just as the trickle-down effect in reality isn't there. So, when we think about this, indeed, we need to go back to, the Christian spirit of the EU in the sense of human dignity and humility. Because there is a point there when it comes to all the distribution of officials, but there is a different point in that. And that is the idea of we know best. And Zbigniew, you're calling me. Sorry, I got a call from the moderator. I think by accident.
I'm sorry, yeah, I switched, just by accident.
Okay. So, where was I? Yes. So there was a point there in this whole distribution of officials. And the point is that beyond and behind that, there's the feeling of a certain bias. The bias of the Western Europeans will kind of still have, and I must simply admit that there is reality there. We know best. We actually know better than the new member states what's good for Europe. And this is a very problematic situation because it is not taking seriously our common human dignity that should translate in a certain sense of humility. Now, so this is where we are. We have a mechanical European Union without sufficient sense of community. On the other hand, there is sense of community among many Europeans. If you think of all the common European organizations, all the common European projects, all the common European movements, and so on and so forth, that we are sitting here, as we are, shows that it's not all lost. It's not like, that there is no European conversation or spirit at all. It's not enough, but it's not there. So, how to build on what we have? So I don't want to, end in only negativity. I don't think that there's a reason for that. So, when we think about community exists through conversation, through meeting, through understanding. I think that Professor Gebhardt explained this very well, the meetings of the young people with Robert Schuman and amongst each other. I see this in our own movement. I see this everywhere in Europe. This is happening. but we need to expand that. We need to have more of that. We need to have real conversation, because we don't have that enough. What we see is that a lot of the conversation in Europe is taking place within bubbles. So either within the bubble of the nation, or within the bubble of the ideological fault lines. But we don't have real conversation or enough, in any case, we don't have enough conversation above and beyond that. What we see in the European Parliament is often playing out, and other podia is a clash, and not a conversation. Not, how are you? Why did you arrive here? Where do you come from? Where do you want to go to? It's a lot of accusations over back and forth, and it's not helpful. It's not changing anything. So, nevertheless, so on the one hand, we need this conversation. On the other hand, we also need, if we have this admittance that the mechanical Europe is going too fast, too speedily, creating problems for that conversation, we also need to have a conversation about the structure of the EU. I like the comparison with between the unison and the symphony orchestra. I love symphony orchestra. I myself, when it's only piano playing, I switch off the radio. But when there's a symphony orchestra, I am, keeping the radio on. I love this, multitude of music coming together. And as we can see that the mechanical European Union, the drive to more Europe, meaning, more power in Brussels, is actually harming the conversation and community that we need before that. This is why our organization is promoting the idea of a confederal Europe, which is one way to approach the situation, to say, we should have a reassessment of competences in the EU, so that people can no longer feel this feeling that the EU is far away and that we are kind of powerless towards it. So that is there, and at the same time we need this conversation taking place between peoples, between communities, between ideological communities, between national communities. This is lacking. This is not taking place too much and not enough. And this conversation and exchange between communities can only take place on the base of the Christian spirit, I would say, in which we recognize each other's equal human dignity and recognize that we are all equal, valuable human beings, and that brings also a part of humility on our end as Western Europeans, that we don't know best everything. We pretend so, we don't. At the same time, I think it would help other peoples who feel that they are pushed in a corner of not knowing enough, to know that they can stand on their equal human dignity and to say, look, we're all equal here. And that hasn't. I think that is the real conversation that we need now in the European Union in order to maintain, indeed, the European Union for the future. We need a conversation between peoples, and we need a conversation about the structure, but these two things should go together. We need to have a conversation about the structure in the sense that it will help to build a community, indeed a community of peoples that understand each other and face these common challenges, the geopolitical challenges, together, not with one voice, but rather as a symphony orchestra. So that is all I wanted to contribute today. I hope it's making sense for those who are listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Johannes. And yeah, it was, I think, a very complimentary, stuff you all presented. and our time is finished. But this is very good, because excitement increased and emotions increased before tomorrow our meeting, because tomorrow I would like all of you will hesitate more deeply, starting from the conclusions you made today, and basically discussing each other about this different, I would say not different, but complementary point of view. So I think all of you indicated that there is a demand for change, that what we have as a European Union, that the change should go very deeply, related to many areas, and without that change, basically people, in different countries are not going to be happy. And we see and we notice, that there are many, manifestations of that unhappiness. And thank you very much, because you delivered very concrete indications. And without a kind of a partnership, as arrived from the speech of Dr. Jacek Sareusz-Wolski, without the partnership, without the conversation, without the kind of in every, a community or every, a relationship, without that partnership, we are not going to expect that this, European Union is going to developed, is not going to be developed well. So in that point, in that place, I'm going to thank you very much and to finish this meeting. And I am sure every of you is going, to have some certain insights to each of you, and as well, some certain ideas about how to develop this, your points, your thesis you put today. And we will meet you tomorrow at 10:30. I am just informing all of you and all our listeners and viewers that, this meeting was recorded. And this meeting was recorded, and on our platform of Institute of Schumann Fund, this is available to be picked up and to be used. So I'm referring now to Jakub Zgierski, a journalist. Just, I'm sorry, there is not a place for the questions, but tomorrow, I think tomorrow, how we start our meeting, we start this meeting with the questions you put, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Prepare the questions to all of the panelists, and we start from the questions, and everybody will go ahead with deeply going to the point. Yes, Johannes.
My sincere apologies that I cannot be there with you tomorrow. If Jakub has any questions for me in between, I'm happy to exchange Zbigniew, you have my contact details, you can exchange them with Jakub.
Yes.
If he has any questions to me, he can email them to me, and I will be happy to answer, and perhaps this can be used tomorrow, I don't know. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, all of you, for your contributions.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, and see you tomorrow.
Well, no, I will